Nice to see everybody. Hope you had have a good Christmas, Happy New Year, and everything else. Anyway, we went through Green Open Homes briefly at the last meeting. I'm just going to recap for those who haven't done it. So, what is Green Open Homes? Well, it's a bit like open gardens. You know, people come and look around your place and learn about the fantastic stuff that people might have put in their houses to make them greener. So, and Green Open Homes, very much a similar kind of thing. And so and it's been run in a couple of places already in Wiltshire, for example, Great Bedwin and Hungerford and other places. And at this point, I'm going to introduce Ruth Larkin here, who's has agreed to take on quite a bit of the admin work around it. So, hi, Ruth. Do you want to say hello?
Hi.
Lovely. Good. Ruth may will have a bit more speaking part in a minute, but I'll just kind of carry on. So what we've decided is that the whole of Wiltshire and Swindon, we're going to have one great big Green Open Homes event over the week starting on the 8th of March. I think it's really worthwhile because for those who are sitting on the fence, not sure if they want to have greener technology in their homes, need that gentle encouragement and confidence to be able to do it. Green Open Homes is about making sure that people gain that confidence that is needed to move them on. We've had a number of discussions also with CSE, so the Centre for Sustainable Energy, I think it is. Anyway, Nick there, they've got a reasonable budget and they're doing quite a bit around retrofitting and houses and training people to do that. But they've also got a little budget around creating a local directory of reliable suppliers, so air source heat pumps and such like. And what has changed since last time we spoke, since last meeting, is that the emphasis of this Green Open Homes is that it will be that we finish up with this directory that we can then share with everybody, and that is one of the aims for CSE as well. So they may help with some of the funding and so on. So what are we doing? So we're looking to have homes across the whole of Wiltshire and Swindon that people are willing to open their homes to talk about their experience about green technology, insulation, air source heat pumps, solar, green cars, and so on, so they can talk about it. And in my view, there will be three options for, and I haven't discussed this with Jeremy. Where's Jeremy? Jeremy, you're around somewhere, and Sylvia. Anyway, there we go. In that people could do Green Open Homes online, as in virtually, so they could show people around over WhatsApp and talk to people over WhatsApp at an allocated time. They could open their homes, but by appointment only, and this is where Ruth may be helping with some of that coordinating, or it'll be just like a normal Green Open Homes where people can tip up, but people will choose to what level they want to participate in. And what we're looking for is our group members here is to encourage your members from your groups or your friends or people that you know who have got that good examples of green technology in their homes, to encourage them to take part in this project that will be running from the 8th of March onwards. Why do we want to do this? Well, because it's a good thing to do and encourages people, but also it'll make your group and our group more relevant because we're seen as being helpful and being some kind of purpose around what we're doing as and something helpful. And there we go. That's it. So I'm going to kind of open up for questions. Jeremy, do you want to add anything, or Ruth, do you want to add anything? Ruth, do you just want to tell us what you did last time and talk us through, and then maybe Jeremy chip in as well, whatever.
Yeah, sure. So we did a kind of small Green Open Homes for well, we called it Wiltshire and West Berkshire. It was really just kind of the area around Great Bedwin that we were working with. So this was as part of Great Green Bedwin, and then we worked with some other organisations as well. So Pusey Green and Heat in Hungerford. So we had about, I think it was 12 homes open. And then, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had, so it was between 50 and 100 visitors. I think it depends whether you count 2 people visiting together or not. And then people who did visit just found it really useful to kind of see in real life what had happened in different people's homes. I think one of the important things was having like a really good range of homes. So it doesn't need to be like a, you know, all singing, all dancing, kind of passive house standards. So people can learn a lot if people have just got some green interventions, because sometimes it can seem just a bit overwhelming for people to have a green home, but it kind of shows that there's a whole range of things that people can do. So the way that we arranged it was that I kind of coordinated with homeowners and got all the information from them about their homes, and then we used a kind of national website called Green Open Homes, where we could kind of record all of the homes on there so people could see what different technologies there were at different homes. And then people contacted the homeowners direct to arrange visits. So we just did it over one weekend, but I think we're aiming for a slightly longer time period for this event. Yeah, so it was kind of really, really useful exercise, and we were hoping to expand the benefit out to Wiltshire more broadly, I think.
Yep. And one thing I forgot to mention is that we're also looking to work alongside Wiltshire Council. So it'd be good if they kind of also use their network to try and push it and so on. We also have Julie Strawson, who is going to be helping with the marketing. So there's a bit of a team that's already kind of formed and underway. Thank you, Ruth, for that input. Jeremy, or Sylvie, did you want to add anything?
Thanks, Christian and Ruth. I think the big challenge, and we discovered this in our recent event, was that we need to get a critical mass of homes and homeowners indicating that they're willing to participate in some form. We've got a variety of people can join just for a day. The day can be at the weekend, it can be during the week, and they can join virtually, or they can show people around their house. It's up to them. So varying levels of engagement, but we do need to build that critical mass quite quickly, and then we can start to publicize it to visitors, and using organizations such as Wiltshire Council, and ideally, you know, can we get BBC Radio Wiltshire involved?
Absolutely.
I think they might be interested in a Wiltshire-wide event. So we do need to think ahead about how we're going to get a pretty massive publicity drive once we've got that critical mass of open homes arranged.
The other thing is that one of the easiest way to find other green homes that can help is if we ask the people we do know who they know who has a green home.
Yeah.
Now it's a bit daunting, the list of things that you can have, but I think the emphasis is that it's a journey, you're not expected to have everything. You know, even some PV and how it works is quite good.
Thank you.
We've got a couple of questions. Bill, is that an old hand, or you've got a question lined up? And then Alan from NADA.
No, I've got some questions. First question is where, you know, if I've got 2 or 3 people who want to join this now, we need somewhere to register straight away. So is there a form somewhere going to be put up? Can we have it available? Where would we send it? Well, how do we do that?
That'll be Ruth. Ruth, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, sure. So we don't have it live just yet, but I can. So we've got a Google form that people can fill in. So I can kind of work on getting that ready to be published in the next kind of day or two, so that we can then circulate that round.
Lovely. And
Okay,
Ruth, we can add that form to that. You see on the chat there, there's a link to the Green Open Homes page on Wiltshire Climate Alliance's website. I think that's probably where we'll put that form for volunteers, if I can put it that way. to that, and send it out to the groups as well.
Yeah, if we get it out as wide as possible within WCA, Chris, I'll set up another mail out after this meeting with a few things attached to it, and that could be one of them. So the sooner we can do that route, the better.
Yeah, I can.
As Jeremy was saying, you know, if we start gathering a foundation of this now, it will grow. But we know how tedious that can be, and if we do it at the last minute, we're really knackered.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Can
that's the first. The second, I've got a couple more questions.
Go on then. Go.
What about those? Say I talk to my neighbour and say, yeah, we'd like to do that, but happy to show people around privately, but we don't want our information shared online. Is that an okay thing? I don't know how we do that in the form. We might say, are you prepared to, or something like that. But I just think some people will not want the whole world seeing their home on YouTube. So I'm just, how do we deal with the privacy issue?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. We do need to make sure that people are only sharing the amount of information that they want to. So the more information that people are willing to share, the better in terms of being able to promote the event. But we can advertise the properties without a photo. You do need some like location information, but it can just say, you know, the name of the village or something like that. So yeah, in the form, it will kind of ask questions about the amount of information that people are willing to share.
Okay, thank you. And final question, really. It's about funding, Chris. So I'll talk to you about that separately. That's me done.
Okay, Alan.
Okay. Can I just add a point before I forget, because I know I'll forget otherwise. Because one of the aims is for us to finish up with a directory of reliable suppliers. It would be really useful if, at the same time, if you're not if you're not recommending some, wanting to open your own home, but you have had something done that you'd like to, that you're happy with, and you would like to recommend your supplier, please do pass that on to us, okay? Or on to Ruth, because whilst your house, you may not want to open up your house, that's fine. If we have a reliable supplier, what we can do is then go to that supplier and says, do you have any other clients who might want to show off what you've done in their home, and so on. So that might be another way of gathering some open homes. Sorry, Alan.
Well, mine's a sort of comment and question, really. The comment is that NADA held a thing called the Tisbury Eco Homes Trail as part of Great Big Green Week. And I forgot which month that was in. Was it May or June? I think it was. Where we had about a dozen homes with various things to offer in terms of solar panels, heat pumps, car chargers, batteries, etc. And we also had one or two other things, such as the hydro scheme in the local on the local estate, and kiddies playgrounds, other green things other than just energy related. So, and that was, we had, it was only for one afternoon. So it was, there was a limited attendance, but the people who opened their properties were interested in doing that. And some of them had quite a few visitors, and they quite enjoyed that. So I think some of them would anyway be quite keen to join a register, which is good news. I suppose the question is, we did that as part of Great Big Green Week. Now, this proposal is March, is a different time, and I guess it's how would we integrate that together and contribute to that, both in terms of the directory of homes and also the directory of suppliers. So it's how we fit in with this proposal, I suppose, is the question. I don't know if Rosie's around and whether she wants to add anything at all.
More questions. I'm having a problem with my speakers. It makes a terrible noise at you. So do carry on in the order that you appear on the screen, Bill and Claire. I think we got a few more minutes if we need for this, because this is going really well. And folks, if you aren't looking at the chat, well, there's lots of useful information gone up in there. Okay, so Bill and then Claire, is it?
Yeah, so I've just, the other point I had half written down was about contacting suppliers. And I've asked my supplier to come back to me, but it may be worth, again, putting on the form, asking people who are offering to say, could you contact your supplier and get more information? So we're actually spreading the word that way through the suppliers as well, because the suppliers should be keen to push it on anyway, because they'll get business out of it.
Yeah, but as I say, one of the end products will be a directory of reliable suppliers. So even if their home isn't shown, if a couple of people have said that they're reliable, then we can help inform that directory. So Claire.
I was just wondering how to what modest level this goes down, because if you thought you were not interested in showing your home, but you were very good at tips and things that you do to make your house more energy efficient, such as reflective panels behind your radiators, or just modest things, or draft proofing. I mean, to what level does it go down in terms of, because if you can't afford, big things on your house, you can probably afford some smaller things, can't you? If other people have tips, I mean, are we going to have like a video of easy things to do in the next month to make life easier or something like that? How would that work out if you wanted to demonstrate how to do something?
Ruth, do you want to grab that one?
Yeah, so I think we could give the option for anyone who wants to take part in the way that they want to. So if you wanted to take part in that way, offering advice, then we'll have an options on the form to kind of say how you want to take part. So that would definitely be something that could be of interest. I mean, it might not be sort of people coming around to your house, but like it could be like a phone call or a video call or something like that.
It can also be shared on paper. We've done at least two, something in the parish news as a list of quick wins, and we've also handed out leaflets in areas with low cost housing, which gives some easy things to do. So it doesn't have to be a visit, I agree. And you have to just judge which category it fits in, really.
And in that point, Jackie McQueen and her husband did a lot of work just recently to put together lots of guidance around how to make one's home greener and so on. I've put the link to that particular page on the website, which is kind of entitled Home Improvements, bit of the website, and lots of really useful information there. Thank you. Anybody else at all? Oh, that's great. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Do let us know if you've got any questions or whatever. But I think this should be a great initiative that will make some difference to our carbon footprint across Wiltshire. So, thank you. Thank you.
Can I just add for Alan, maybe if we chat offline about the your specific event.
Thank you. All right, back to you, Andrew. You're muted.
Right. Okay. There are now 30 of us. Greetings to Tamara Ray, Councillor Tamara Ray, isn't it? Welcome, and everybody else. Bill, you were just about to mention this opportunity for retrofit advisor training. Shall we crack on with?
Yeah, I can do that now. Can I share the screen at the moment? I don't know. Yeah, I probably can. There we go. Can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay. So this is just a very brief page to explain what this is all about. There's a scheme going on led by Centres for Sustainable Energy called Future Proof Wiltshire Lead. It's designed to help homeowners, as it says there, across Wiltshire to understand how they deal with the barriers of retrofit. And what they're offering is a free 2-day training course for 4 people, 2 in Swindon, 2 in Wiltshire, to become retrofit advisors. So you don't have to be an expert at everything, but you will get training on how to work through the basics of retrofit with people that you're helping to advise in your community. So the aim is to get local groups to manage this locally, and I will talk a bit about WCA in a minute, but what they're offering also, as well as that 2 days of training, is a £5,000 grant to go to the local group. So there's an incentive of a £5,000 payment into your group's account, but there's also the incentive to provide real help to your community in terms of how retrofit can be carried out in their area and what it means and how it works. In a little bit like what we're trying to do with the website, a little bit like what we're trying to do with Green Open Homes, just getting the messages out there as to how you can do it. All I'm putting this up for really is to say we should be getting on with this. Groups in the county should be applying for this, but there are only 2 places. When the applications are closed on the 15th, COC will then review them and select from those people who applied. So without trying to drive too much competition into this, 2 in Wiltshire, 2 in Swindon, but you need to get your applications in. So, you need to be in a group. Now, if somebody on tonight wants to go, but they're not in a particular group, you already are in a group because you're sitting in one. In which WCA are prepared to carry this forward as WCA, but we need volunteers to come along and say, yeah, I'd like to do that, and be the name in the on the page as to who is going to get trained on that day. I spoke to CSE today and asked whether more than one person could be trained on the days of training, i.e. 2 people sharing the training, because it's going to be online, so you can. And there wasn't a negative response, let's put it that way. So my idea was that if you had 2 people, then you could share, you give a broader cover for the group. So I'm sure they would accept that because it actually will help spread the word. But that's so please think about it. If you haven't already, of course, some of you guys might be in a group who already applied, so which is fine. But I'm just passing it out to those who haven't and offering a space in WCA for people that somebody would come along and say, yeah, we'd like to do it in WCA. And it has to be for your local community. So WCA would spread Wiltshire wide, which is a bit tricky. And we might say, actually, WCA are going to do it, but we're only going to do it in these 2 or 3 places, which aren't taken up by others. Okay, so that's 2 questions. Would anyone at the local group like to pick it up? And would anybody here like to work on this as a part of WCA? At the bottom, there's a QR code and a website link if you want to take those to go and see the form you have to fill in, which is fairly straightforward. Ask some sensible questions, then you submit it. Okay, that's me. Has anybody got any questions?
I've got a question. Can you put that fabulous thing you've just displayed up on the chat, please, Bill? Because I'm about to email all the Pusey Green team to give them an update of what we're doing, and it would be very useful if I can get that information out ASAP.
Okay, I have a problem at the moment because
it's actually on our website, Bill, on the members meeting page, if you want to go to that, Kate.
Have you
Okay.
put it there?
Can I download it from there?
Yeah.
Have you put the QR code on there, Julie?
No, that's not there. Quick question, Bill. The link I put on the agenda is the Southwest Net Zero Hub, who seem to be running the training. Is that right? I mean, I don't quite understand how they work with CSE and Future Proof.
Southwest Hub are a partner along with Wiltshire Council and Swindon Council, I think. So they're partners of the whole group. I don't know who's actually doing the training.
Yeah.
All I know is that it's being managed through CSE because the CSE have put the note out.
the QR code, I've just put the link on there. So that QR code that was on the thing equates to what's in that chat in the chat now. The forms, jot form thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you got that, Kate?
Sorry?
You got that QR code? Sorry, the
link.
link, the web link.
It's in the chat.
URL
chat.
Is it the one that's just gone up?
Yeah.
The jot form.
Yeah.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you.
Right. Well, thanks to the fantastic interest in Green Open Homes, we're running not early, I'll put it that way. Let's move on to item 3 then. February the 20th. It'll be, is it a Wiltshire Full Council meeting? 5 years on, let's make some noise. And of course, by tradition, we do things that are peaceful and legal. Now, there's something in the agenda about an idea for sharing ideas in the breakouts. What I'm going to suggest is that if we're running breakouts, we do that probably after at least item 4, possibly after item 5. Is that acceptable to the rest of you, or particularly steering group members? So that we can keep to time and give plenty of time to the MP face-to-face meetings, the election run-up to the notional leave, where there might be a general election this year, and so on. That's what I'm suggesting. No one's shouting at me, so I'm going to say let's just was it going to be you, Bill, again, introducing?
Yeah. I was just going to say we need some ideas, some help in there this year to get a good team together outside there. After all, it is 5 years since Wiltshire Council acknowledged a climate emergency, and it's just time to shake the tree again, I think. Andrew, have you gone?
I beg your pardon. Sorry, I'm having sound audio problems.
Okay. Do you want to move on to item 4? We can pick this up under the breakout.
Yeah, shall we do that? You're only partly comprehensible to me because I have problems with my audio. So it might be even have to be someone else might take over, moving us on from one item to the next, which could be Bill, Julian. I don't mind because I'm not hearing everything.
I'll pick it up, Andrew. So item 4 is MP's face-to-face meetings, and item 5 is a climate hustings. And the note on the agenda suggested these could be run together, but Julian and Tony have picked up the cudgel to actually try and bash our heads to get us working on it. So I think I'll just pass over to you two guys, and let's go on. How do we deal with this, with the big election on its way?
Okay. Thank you. Julian, can I share my screen now? Would that be best?
Yes, let me. It's funny, why aren't you in the participants list?
So while Julian's doing that, I think just to say as you probably, I'm sure you're all very aware, there is a lot of muttering about a potential general election. Certainly it has to be called within this year, even though I think the deadline for actually holding the election will be the end of January. I think it is. And there is speculation at the moment, as inevitable in something like this, whether it's going to be a spring general election following perhaps the budget, which has been called earlier, or whether they're going to hold out till autumn. The spring one, I think, there's suggestion it might well coincide with local elections on May the 1st or 2nd. I can't remember which one it is, at the start of May. So there's a certain logic to that. But also, I think the autumn, October potential date coincides with just after the party political conferences, which is good at rallying troops and things like that. So at the moment, we don't know, but I think the principle, what we're trying to establish here is to engage with the candidates as they stand at the moment, early, so that they're well aware of the concerns that we have and the issues we hold. And we understand where their position is, and so that we can perhaps continue to apply pressure or to lobby or whatever, because I suspect, climate change, biodiversity loss, other issue-related issues, existential issues like this may go down the priority ladder as we get to a general election. Inflation, cost of living crisis, all those sorts of things may well take center stage, and I think it's up to us to try and make sure the candidates are well aware that actually there are other issues that are very important to their constituents.
Thank you,
So,
Tony.
Julian, how are we doing there?
Yeah, so you're okay to share now.
Yep.
And I'm just going to interject something. I'm aware that there are elected representatives from at least 2 political parties present in the meeting this evening, which is brilliant, and probably candidates from up to, or at least members of up to 4 political parties present. So we keep it cordial and we keep it focused on our Wiltshire Climate Alliance concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew, for that reminder. Yeah, I think just to say what we're looking to do is we're concerned about the issues rather than necessarily the people, the representatives. So it's that's certainly, I think, the focus we should be having. So whoever gets in should be well aware that WCA and our affiliates have these concerns. So can you all see the screen? Yep. Okay. Julian, I've got control. So do you want to speak to the let me just, should be able to there we go. Okay, sorry, the first 2 really are just a bit of background, and then we'll go into the 2 aspects, which is the MP meeting or candidate meetings, and then the hustings. So just for those of you who may not be aware, there has been a change to the constituency boundaries, pretty much across the board. But what's probably most significant in some ways, certainly to me, where I am up in the north, is that the Chippenham and South Cotswolds have changed quite a bit there. So there's a bit of an overlap. South Cotswolds now is part of the northernmost part of Wiltshire, but includes a bit of Stroud and also a bit of Cotswolds District Council. And I think Chippenham, has taken a little bit of one of the Swindon boundaries, or is that the East Wiltshire? Anyway, I think there has been major rejiggle just to try and balance up populations. So I think it'll be good for people to know, which constituency they are now in, because that will have shifted for quite a few of, I suspect. So if everyone's happy with that, there's the old boundaries there just for comparison. So yeah, it's quite a substantial shift, certainly around on the western side of the county. Now, this information here is off the Wikipedia website, so it's completely impartial, but that's really the updated position we have in terms of the candidates. And as you'll see, there aren't actually very many candidates identified at this stage. So obviously that's going to affect a little bit of timing. What I put in here is there's a very interesting website called Electoral Calculus, which gives all sorts of amazing analysis and data around the constituencies and their component wards. And these are based on the social trends and all sorts of measurements. This is what they predict will be the outcome of the election, the forthcoming election. So whereas previously, 2019, all 7 constituencies were returned Conservative MPs, we're now looking at 8 constituencies, 2 of which will return a Labour MP for the first, probably for the first time in a few years. Otherwise, I think the rest of the county looks like it's going to remain Conservative, although there's some fairly close run things in one or two places. Mel, you got a question relating to this? Okay.
I don't think I'd take much notice of this, frankly, because reform could easily stand in most of those. That would split the Conservative vote. Also, I very much doubt that figure for Salisbury is right. They haven't even got a Labour candidate at the moment. So I think this is a bit too early, this particular forecast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just where I stand at the moment. That's what these people are saying. So yes, you're right, reform. I don't think you've stood any candidates yet. But anyway, for what it's worth, we thought maybe get a little bit of background. So can I hand over to you, Julian?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, we did a sort of double act here and just combined our slides just moments after the meeting started. So sorry that it's a bit last minute here anyway. So yeah, just on that last slide, I tend to agree with Mel that things are quite early. Could you just pop back to it a second, Tony?
Yeah.
And the main point of showing that it's on the right was that it's no longer a sort of taken for granted thing across the county. Those columns on the right of agriculture's probabilities, I think it's better really to look at sort of the suggested votes, because those probabilities are very sensitive to current polling and what's happening, and things can change quite rapidly either way running up to the election. And also they don't take into account the local candidates. They're more on party along party lines and what the demographics in those places tend to vote for party wise. But if you've got a really good candidate in a different party, then they can shift those figures a bit. But yeah, so the main point was to sort of suggest it's worth looking into what other key candidates it's good to talk to. Anyway, oh yes, and the other thing is on that slide, if anyone knows any candidates that aren't on the table, it would be quite helpful to share that, because things like leaflets and things come around sometimes and they're not updated on the websites and things like that. So if you do have any extra information, please put it in the chat for who's standing for what party in any of those constituencies. Okay, thanks. Next slide, Tony. So there are two key ways that I've been involved in engaging candidates. One's individual meetings with candidates, and the other is organising hustings. Just a little bit of background. I started doing this in Bristol, and it was very rewarding. We had both very large hustings and very small hustings in Bristol. For example, one in Bristol North East, where the standing Labour candidate had a small majority and retired. Very interesting hustings we had with a new Labour and new Conservative candidate. The Labour candidate was Darren Jones, and he's subsequently sort of, taken over that and become quite famous. And the Conservative candidate was returned the first time. And, after that hustings, we had a drink with both candidates. They were both really nice, and we sort of established a relationship with them. So it's really well worth, especially where you've got new candidates, getting engaged with them, engaging with them early on before they're MPs, and you can hopefully continue that relationship afterwards. Anyway, there are two main ways we've been engaged, as I say here. One is individual meetings with candidates, and the time to do that is as soon as possible, because as the election approaches, they're going to get busier and busier and have less time to concentrate on issues. But at the moment, we engaged both our runner-up candidates in Swindon, both the Labour candidates in Swindon, before Christmas, and had a good chat with them. We've had an ongoing relationship with the two Conservative MPs in Swindon, so we know all of them, and it's quite useful to be in that position to be able to engage with them, and they sort of know that there's a sort of environmental sort of movement in the town. So about individual meetings, they're much easier to organise than hustings. They develop a closer relationship with the candidates. You can discuss the issues in more detail. You can aim to inform and present environmental perspective on issues to them. And I would always suggest these meetings were run under Chatham House rules, which means that what you say in the meeting stays in the meeting. You don't sort of go and splurge all over the press that this candidate said something stupid in your meeting, because of course that completely breaks down the relationship straight away. Other groups can take different approaches, but that is the way that I've always done it, and generally with sort of Friends of the Earth affiliated groups. The other sort of meeting is a hustings. That's also useful if resources are available, but it's a major event to organise and quite a tricky one, because it's very difficult to get all the candidates to agree to come, especially all coming at the same time. So, and you really want to do it a few weeks before the election, when the press and everything is sort of focused on the election. So, it's quite a challenge to organise a hustings. It does engage a wider public, but often you get the usual suspects along, as as with a lot of these things, it does sort of give a better element of public accountability and commitment. But then the candidates will normally be just saying their party lines, so you don't necessarily get that. You can't sort of discuss with a particular candidate and say, do you really agree with what your party policy is on this issue? They just go with the party policy. So that's the two sorts of things. So apologies, this is a little bit like death by PowerPoint. So I've got 3 slides on each of these items, and it's mainly to remind me the things to say. I'll go through it fairly quickly first, and then give people a chance to ask questions. But if you have anything urgent to say, do of course stand up. So next slide, Tony. So individual meetings. This is a few tips on how we've organised them, and as I say, we've had one in each of the Swindon constituencies, north and south. Now we had them before Christmas. Our candidates were selected early because it's quite a marginal seat, and it's probably, according to the sort of current polling, predicted to change hands. But as we discussed earlier, that may or may not happen. But these individual meetings, they can either be in person or online, but I would suggest the first meeting is in person, so that the candidate has a better chance to get to know your group. Once you've done an in-person meeting or two, then if you want to maintain the relationship, Zoom can be very useful, because you can bring in other people, and it's easier for everyone concerned and easier to put into the MP's timetable, for example. It's important, obviously, to clarify the time you've got available up front, and you'll need to fit in with their timetable generally, because they're pretty busy people, candidates and MPs. It's important, obviously, as was mentioned earlier, to remain a non-party political in these meetings. I'd always suggest not inviting candidates or politicians of other parties, although allies from the same party can be helpful. And if people are just quietly members of a particular party, that's fine. But if you have someone who's a public spokesperson for a party, it immediately puts the candidate on edge. So I would avoid doing that in an individual meeting of this type. Next slide, Tony. So one suggested format for such a meeting, which is the format we adopted in Swindon. We invited the candidate to give their take on the party policy. So they did a little presentation on what they took as the main points. In this case, it was Keir Starmer's sort of quality and so forth. Then we did a presentation from a group which was based on IPCC science. So that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So what that is it's a global scientific body And what they do is they come together, agree the science, then they write a report, and it gets filtered by the politicians from all the countries who all have to sign it off. So it becomes quite sort of diluted and conservative. But at least, you know, they all agree to it. It forms a very sort of hopefully non-controversial basis, and for what's likely to happen in terms of the climate and what the predictions are for coming years. Even though it's quite diluted, it's pretty startling, and a lot of MPs and candidates just haven't seen this stuff. So that's why I suggest doing a presentation like this to give a chance to show our perspective on these things. And of course, discuss as you go through the presentation anything they want to challenge or discuss. Then what we tried to do after that was to have 3 discussion points, either local importance or interest to the candidates. You can sort of just discuss energy, transport and food or something like that, where you can tie it to constituency, particular sort of issues, or if they're an MP, you may want to ask them specific things which they can go and follow up with the relevant ministers, because that's one of the main routes into ministers, talking to your MP and asking them to send them a letter and give you the response. And of course, after the meeting, share your slides and references and links and any questions that you've asked. Next slide, Tony. So it's worth thinking about who you're going to invite to such a meeting. It's well worth trying to collaborate with other like-minded groups, especially if they've got a venue you can use. Faith groups, the Quakers are particularly hot on the environment, but so are other faith groups, Catholics and churches together, things like that. WI is very good. They have an environmental campaign. In fact, it's coming up in February, and I need to catch up on what they're doing this year. If you can do it in conjunction with a college, that's really good, because it's really useful to have some young people represented. Very often these meetings, MPs are or candidates are always meeting with older lobbyists. But if you have, like college age people or, graduates or whatever, that can really add a powerful dimension to the meeting. So it's well worth trying to do that if you can. Going through, for example, the college environmental science lecturer or something like that. Or any, people that who are graduates. And one caution I would say is avoid other groups that may hijack the agenda, because that's the last thing you want when you're trying to focus on climate change and the ecological emergency. So pick good communicators to lead on each agenda item is really important. If you get if someone starts waffling on an agenda item, then you just lose the sort of momentum of the meeting. So that's a really important point. And the chair needs to keep the conversation focused and avoid rabbit holes, which are very easy to fall down on these sorts of meetings, especially when you're talking to politicians, MPs. Experience, they'll start talking about something they know about, and before you know it, the meeting's finished. So next slide, Tony. And okay. So that,
on, Julian.
Yeah.
Wait, you have a question. You've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to put that question now, or do you want to wait a bit longer?
It's fine. I mean, just one of the things that might be useful is if we do know when the hustings are for various parties, it might be useful having it up on the Wiltshire Climate Alliance, so people know when they are there and can go and ask questions or listen to what the politicians have to say.
Yes. So, of course, we were talking about not hustings, but individual meetings there. So that's a bit different. We were just about to go on to hustings, and yes, of course. With hustings, shall I do my couple of slides and then you take over, Tony, or do you want to take over from now?
No, I think I'm happy for you to carry on. I'll chip in as and when.
Okay. So sorry, a bit more of my voice then. So I'll talk a little bit about hustings now, which is the other main mechanism for engaging candidates. So whereas with individual meetings, I would say as soon as possible, with hustings, you need to much longer to prepare, and they're more effective if you do them a bit closer to the election. So, but you do need to be well prepared for when the election's called, because then you don't have very much time at all to find a slot for your candidate and so forth. So you need to start establishing your partnerships and working out what you think you might do. So, well worth obviously the like-minded local groups trying to get together first, but also think about partnering with the bigger organizations with mailing lists. For example, and I'm sort of getting ahead of myself here. So yeah, first of all, partner with organizations who have got venues like colleges and schools, or maybe local sort of cultural centre or something like that might be happy to host it, and not charge, because there's no, you wouldn't normally charge people to go to the hustings. So if whatever you can get in kind is very helpful. And an eco-friendly church can be very good type of partner as well. Then it's worth also partnering with the organisations that got mailing lists. So obviously Friends of the Earth and Greenpeace are two. Friends of the Earth is very happy if you organise an event to share it with their members in the area. And other organisations like Oxfam, for example, that's been quite on campaigning on climate change and so forth lately. So they're quite a good one, and they've got a big mailing list. In Bristol, when we did it, they used to have a local sort of person, but I'm not sure if we got a local person, and anyone knows about that, please put it in the chat or let me know. Other organisations like CPRE have got a common agenda in some areas. I think Andrew knows more about them. And there's just a little list there: Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, RSPB, Woodland Trust, National Trust, to consider if you have any connection with them, or if you can establish one, get them interested.
Yeah, could I just add, Judy, at this point? Yeah, I mean, I think we'll at the end of this we'll see how WCA can specifically be involved, and the member affiliate groups. But I think it seems to be, well, MPs are not going to want to fritter away their time when an election's coming to talk to all sorts of different organisations about very similar things. So it makes a huge amount of sense to partner up with these people, and not least because they'll have their own, as Julian said, their own mailing lists. They'll also have, they may well, for all we know, they're having similar meetings right now, organising these events themselves. So to partner up with those to really give some extra bang for our buck, as it were, when we do engage with the candidates. So I think and also share the workload on it. So, avoiding duplication and sharing, and I think that's a way of actually for WCA itself to be able to perhaps widen its influence and get people to know that we're actually around and what we do. So I think it's a great opportunity for WCA to really spread its wings a little more.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of the format of a hustings, I've seen a number of different approaches and tried a few, but the one that we found works by far the best is a question time type format. So where you decide your question themes in advance, and that makes sure you cover the main important points. Then you invite lots of questions, and then you try and group them and so on, and put them to the chair, or get the chair to invite people to contribute. And there's a few techniques for that, which I think I'll go on to in a later slide, so I'll just leave it at that for now. And of course, you might want to ask for donations if the news expensive. Next slide. So suggestions for audience engagement here. in the past, we used Twitter for live questions, but I think nowadays we probably use WhatsApp because that way you can get a sort of online conversation going, and you can have like a panel of people up front to keep an eye on these platforms and write down any key sort of themes that are emerging, or interesting questions, and pass them to the chair, and then the chair can say so and so asked this question and so on. It just saves an awful lot of time and allows you to get the get more into the meeting. Obviously, the chair can invite people to say their question if they want to, but that would be up to them. And another tip is that if you give everyone a red and a green card, or two colours of cards, then it allows people to sort of raise a card if they agree with what the candidates are saying, or raise the other card if they disagree. And that can be quite powerful, especially if you've got a large room full of people and they all put their red cards up and someone says something. It just illustrates that a lot of people don't agree with some of these anti-climate policies. Hopefully they wouldn't come up too much anyway. So hustings event promotion. So, I mean, you just have to promote the hustings like any other event. There's a few of us, Chris in particular is obviously very experienced in promoting events, but a few people in the WCA that can help if you need it for the different sort of ways of promoting events. It's worth using Eventbrite, I would say, for most hustings, or some similar event platform. They're free, so the event is free, so the site doesn't charge, and it's quite good at suggesting it to people. Once you got the event there, it'll actually sort of suggest to people looking at Eventbrite that there's this event happening that they might be interested in, and you can of course share the link to it, and the more you share it, the more you get shared to other people as well. So that's quite good. It's worth posting on all the local event sites you can think of, particularly local paper or local media, because they will often keep an eye on their own event listings, and they may well be interested in engaging with you on the event, writing an article about it, or possibly coming and covering it, live. Similarly, if you talk to any local radio contacts you've got, they may want to do the audio, and they may even broadcast it, depending on what sort of local media it is. And in Bristol, when we did hustings, the BBC and ITV sort of sent a camera along and covered it. So, it's worth, if you've got an interesting lineup and good chair, then it's well worth letting them know, and they may well be interested, because they always a good bit of local news. Was there another one, Tony? What was that?
Yep. Invites.
Oh yes, okay. So yeah, this is another point I wanted to make. So you don't have to invite all the candidates, and if you've got a lot of sort of unusual party candidates that are going to make it unmanageable, then it's probably better to have a fair basis in deciding what candidates you want to invite. A typical one we've used in the past is candidates who have a reasonable chance of being in the running, plus candidates who have environment as their key focus. There are, when you run a hustings within the electoral period, and I think that's now extended to be most of the year before an election, so anytime. There are guidelines on what you can do in a hustings without the MPs having to declare them as expenses and things like that. So they can't, if you're only inviting two candidates, say, then those MPs would probably have to declare it as an election expense, shared between them, because it's not a general hustings. So I think it's Electoral Reform Society. I have to refresh my knowledge on this. Friends of the Earth is very good at advising on the sort of legalities, making sure you don't fall foul of any rules about organising hustings. Yeah, just suffice it to say, you don't just have to invite all of them and give them all equal time, as long as you have a fair basis for deciding who you invite. And if you've got a lot of candidates, it's really worth making sure you do make a sensible selection, because otherwise half of the time is going to go with candidates who are raising sort of very strange issues, and it just completely dilutes the event, and you don't achieve what you need to, because the time goes all too quickly. You can't really have it much more than an hour and a half, and by the time you're doing introductions and sort of, finishing off bits and everything, the time just completely disappears if you do wider panel. So that's my.
So shall I finish off on them? Yeah,
Please.
thanks, Julian. That's great. So I think, as we said before, what role can WCA play in all of this? Well, as I said earlier, the when of it is really, we have potentially a year for the hustings, but there is a stage, and so obviously getting to know the candidates as soon as they put their heads above the parapet, as it were, then that's a process to start. So we really be looking for people to who would want to actually be engaged in that process, and we'll be looking for people there who really do, I guess, know a lot about the issues that they can then communicate and express to the candidates. The hustings, as Julian said again, is quite a complex thing to organise, and particularly if we're doing it with other organisations. So to have that real clarity around what that process is and the organisation of it, to have that in place, so that as soon as an election is announced, we can just press the button and things fall into place. So I think we're really saying that we want to be getting going on all of these things at this stage. I think the what of it, I think we're pretty much clear on that there. But I think the purpose really is to inform the MPs, but also to make sure the MPs know not just about the issues that matter to us, but the fact that there is a substantial number of people within their constituency for whose these issues are really important. And I think maybe that's something we'll need to probably flesh out more in the not too distant future, about what are the areas we want to actually cover as WCA, because climate change is interrelated for so many issues, as we know. How do we focus on things that really are going to be key points? The other thing, as I would say, is where is our focus going to lie? Is it going to be a balance between MPs as local representatives and therefore engaging in local issues, but also the fact that the MPs are the means by which we hopefully can engage with central government and bring influence into that? Because I think, as we know from our work with Wiltshire County, there's certain things the county itself can't do, certain things that cannot be done, are controlled from Westminster, and therefore, our MP is going to be that conduit for that influence. So I think to bear those things in mind as well, it's not just, I would suggest, at least a local issue debate we have. So that really leads us on to, how do we as WCA engage? What do we do? So there's as we see it, there's three kind of areas of work. One is the overall coordination, and that's really getting everything going now. All of the things that Julian's talked about, it's liaising with other organisations, and this is where you, in your local areas, you may know those representatives of different organisations you think would be interested in working with us and us with them around engaging with candidates. So yeah, it's also perhaps bringing together, offering, formats, the experience of that to the local groups. There's also, I think, be a work stream really about engaging directly with the candidates themselves, and that is about building a longer term relationship with these individuals. So again, as you said, level of expertise, the confidentiality, but also seeing them perhaps less in political terms, but more in terms of what is it that they should be taking to Parliament if they were elected. And then there's the constituency action, which is basically, you know, within each constituency, we hope within WCA we've got all of the 8 constituencies are represented, and that we'll be looking for people within each of those constituencies, perhaps take a bit of a lead, working perhaps with other organisations in that constituency, but taking a lead around liaising around venue and setting up the sort of practicalities of it. So I think that's plenty of us talking about this. I guess if we'd like to throw it open, but we were thinking about doing perhaps a little breakout just to for people to put forward any suggestions, comments, and offers of help around those sort of 3 areas of work and expertise, whatever they can bring to this process. Because I think this is not a I wouldn't say it's once in a lifetime, certainly not, but it's, you know, elections don't come around that often. You know, this is a real opportunity. This is a critical moment in our area, in our country, in the world, to really bring some some sense into politics. So you know, we need to grab this all with both our hands and to really get our political representatives to be fully aware of the importance of this. So, Adam, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Hi. Can I just make a couple of points? Thanks. That was excellent, and I fully support the aim of trying to have a hustings in every one of the 8 constituencies. And I'm personally volunteer to help with the both the Chippenham one, which is where my group is based, and also the South Cotswold one, which is where I happen to live, just across the border. I think, and I really support the idea of WCA preparing a toolkit based really on what you've just done, but with perhaps some of the links that you talked about in a bit more detail. One thing I'd just mention in that context, Jez is still here. Remember that Bradford-on-Avon, Climate Friendly Bradford-on-Avon, working with other groups like ourselves, but mainly led by the Bradford-on-Avon group, have done 2 excellent hustings in the last 2 elections, particularly the last one, which was attended by about 200 odd people. It was a fantastic turnout. Didn't change the outcome of the election, but it really did put the environment very much on the agenda, I think, and it was a very powerful event, I thought. So learning from them, so if Jez is the right person or someone else in Climate Friendly Bradford-on-Avon, I think they would have a lot to contribute. So I'm definitely up for that. I'm very happy to join a working group to get moving with that, because I think you're right about the urgency, because you know, if it is May, which it could well be, then we need to get this out and ready in the next couple of months. The other point I was going to mention on your point about engaging individually, as it happens, our group is doing a film in Horsham on the 6th of February called Once You Know, and I've invited and had acceptances from 3 of the candidates for the Chippenham constituency. Well, 2 of the actual candidates, that's Nick Puntis and Sarah Gibson, and a representative from the Green Party, Duncan Baisley, who was the candidate in the last election, may well be this time. I haven't heard back from Labour yet, but I mean, the intention is to show the film and then have a discussion with them, putting them on the spot at the end of that. So if anyone's interested in coming along to that, and you know, particularly if you're in the Chippenham constituency, I'll put some details in the chat now. You can book, it's got an online booking form and so on like that. But I think that's also an opportunity for us in that Chippenham constituency to start to engage with those candidates, all of them, as many of them we can, before in the lead into you know, preparing for hustings and so on. So if anyone wants to join that, let me know. I'll put the details in the chat, or just, you know, people can contact me. So I'll just do that now. So I think my main points, but definitely thumbs up from me to get involved in that.
Great, fantastic. Thank
Again,
you.
Adam, could you send me a detail and I'll put it in the mail?
Yeah, yeah.
So in events like this, perfect opportunity to, if you're already building relationships, we can work with that and add to what we're doing. Certainly there's no point duplicating. There's certainly no point irritating the candidates by coming along the next day with some similar questions. So yeah, the more we know about what's going on out there, the better. So anyone else? Jess, you've got your hand up.
Hello. There we go. Hi. Yes, quite true, Adam. Yeah, last election was very successful hustings, I think. Of course, this time Corsham is in a separate constituency to Bradford-on-Avon. And we're now lumped in with Devizes from Bradford, Melksham and Devizes. So, that's going to need to form new relationships, as it were. I did put a post in the chat that there's an organisation called Melksham Devizes Primary .org who are having street stalls on consecutive Saturdays from the January the 6th. I think Melksham Devizes and then Bradford-on-Avon. And the idea there is to find the candidate, to have a hustings and find a candidate who's got the best climate record, as it were. There's also an organisation that I also put in the chat called voteclimate.uk. Now, I typed into their website for East Wiltshire just to see what it would say. And it says, and I think this is a format that they have for every constituency, if we can recruit 3,614 members in East Wiltshire, we can potentially swing the seat at the next election to whichever of Conservative or Labour has the best climate policy. That's 5.5% of the electorate. And then it goes on to say we would need over 10,000 for the best climate representative from the main three parties. So that I think that's be an interesting site for all to look at to work out if they know 3,614 people, they could swing the election, as it were, in East Wiltshire. But that's a dreamland. Anyway, I leave that with you.
Thanks, Jess.
So, Andrew?
Right. So I'm ready to open some breakouts if you want to. And what I was going to suggest is I think this will work. The breakouts have the names of the new constituencies, so you can join those. But if it turns out you're by yourself or something, or you want to join another one, you should just be able to leave the room and join another one. So this may be chaos, but anyway, if you are happy to give it a go.
Hang on, just before we go, there's three people that want to say something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry.
Julian.
Okay, if it's me, so, I'll let Hazel go first.
Can I ask, because I noticed you were going to do talk about the outside Wiltshire on February the 20th. And that's something I'm really interested because being a Quaker attender, I know a lot of my friends do seem to come along to that. And I would have thought that that would be a very good meeting to even suggest certain aspects of what you're talking about today. So I don't know if you're going to continue afterwards to talk about that meeting on the 20th. I'm just asking. So
I think I was looking more for people who are likely to get engaged, and you're one of them, Hazel. So that's good news. So all I'm asking for in the breakouts is if you have an interest, let me know, because it would help, because I need somebody to coordinate and support things. So Hazel, we got your email address.
Yes.
Can't send it to Hazel iPad.
Right.
You got one. Send it to me on a.
Sorry?
if you've got an email address, can you send it to me?
Well, you
Pop it in
already
the-
sent things to me, so.
Yeah. I sent things through MailChimp, but I had no idea who Hazel. There were several Hazels.
Oh, I see. Well, my name is a double barrel, actually, Hazel Brazil. So think of two nuts.
Okay, that's fine.
You'll get it straight away.
Right.
Okay, great. So,
Can I just
Ruth?
say that,
Yes.
Jez, I'm not sure if I'm right, but I thought that Vote Climate was the Greenpeace very organised, very focused campaign where they've recruited local coordinators and door knockers. Because I looked at joining but can't actually spare the time. Extremely focused and impressive to ensure that climate issues are registered in this election. And in fact, they're uppermost in everybody's minds.
That's a very good.
Sorry, that's actually a project called Project Climate Vote.
Ah.
Greenpeace
Right.
initiative. I mean, it seems like, I mean, I'm not, yeah.
So yeah, so it's related but different. Thank you.
Yeah.
It may well be there are two different things. I actually sent an email to Greenpeace asking about what they were doing in Wiltshire. So we'll see what comes back in that. But yeah, if you can get in touch with them as well and find out any more about it, that would be really useful to know. Thanks.
I think we know there's actions here around that we want to pick up, perhaps as a sort of core team, just for the coordination. Anyway, so I think Keith, you were quite keen on joining in, weren't you?
Yeah, this is an area that feels like we should get a fairly good relationship between effort input and the size and magnitude of the influence that we generate. So I find it particularly interesting that I live in that new area, the South Cotswolds, which still slightly confuses me, mixing up the normal county barriers and the county council and the MP just seems crazy, but it's done now. It does. There really seems to be a timing issue here, doesn't it? It feels to me like the meetings with the MPs to try and influence them in a sort of Chatham House, fairly private meeting needs to be done pretty early, because it's the hustings thing, which is where it feels like it should have a much bigger impact on voters. And we're making the assumption that if we had a really well organised hustings event, would it be possible to create videos of those and a program or a record of it that could then be put out to other people? I mean, that means you get a lot more reach from the hustings event, whereas the give from us on the meeting with the MP is the privacy issue, and that's much more trying to influence them. So yeah, I'm up for putting some enthusiasm and effort into this, even though it's an area that I've never really been involved in. I'm sure we can make something happen.
Can I ask, I think Andrew's still having problems. Can I ask that we have the breakouts? And I think there are three things that sort of come through. One, we need people who will join an organising group and have those ideas fleshed out in more detail you've been talking about and getting something done. So one, is your name going to be put forward to do that? Two, I think any ideas that I can add to the things that Tony and Julian have already said, because there's probably other ideas coming out of that. And the first one is my personal plea. Can you say if you're interested in the 20th of February, because it's going to be fairly close. But I would suggest that whatever happens, you guys, because I'm going to be away for a while, so you guys are going to have to get this thing going very quickly together. So we'd almost say at the end of this meeting, let's arrange the first date for that organising group for the election stuff as soon as we can. Julian, sorry, go on. Yep.
Yeah, just on the point two that you said, sort of other ideas. On what I was really hoping was that people could come up with what was going to happen in each of those constituencies, or what their thoughts were. If that's why I sort of set up the breakout group to the constituency name. So if you can work out, what local group might lead on it in your group, and who the candidates are, and think about what might happen in your particular constituency. That was the idea
Yeah, good point. Seeing if there's a local group who will be doing it as well, because that's really important. We don't want to be stretching ourselves across the county doing the things if we've got a group there that can do it, we should be letting them get on with it. Good idea.
Yeah, and supporting and working with them.
Yeah. Okay. How long have we got? We're already 8:20. So if you want to,
Claire, you've got your hand up, but is it a quickie?
Sorry, press one thing. Sorry. Just to say, can I just make the point that if you've got a constituency where the boundaries have changed, like they have down in Salisbury, someone always has a hustings in Salisbury, but the candidates will be particularly keen on a hustings in the new bit of their constituency. So if you have a group that is in the new bit that they're not very familiar with, so for example, down in Salisbury, we've got this new bit going out west, and everybody's out there, you know, trying to take the temperature because the candidates and the parties haven't got all the data that they have about all the bit they've already done. So I think hustings in these new for that MP or that candidate who's been working the constituency for a long time would be a particularly fruitful place to have your hustings, because it's a new place where they'll want to be doing something.
Thank you, Claire. That's a good point. Interesting.
Runs back by the look of it, and so shall we have a quick report back? Move quickly to report backs. I think, Shirley, are you willing to report back briefly from the Melksham Devices, or is it who is Jez? Margaret, Shirley, and I were in the Melksham Devices, which covers Bradford and Avon and Box as well.
Can I just ask if Tony going to give us a note of the main points?
Andrew, can't you do it? Because you did it at the end of our actual breakout. It's brilliant. Yeah, carry on.
Points were that it's a very novel constituency, throwing different parts of different ones together, and that Box in Wiltshire is particularly novel part for us to take on board, was in North Wiltshire. Then we considered where we might have correct me if I'm wrong in a moment, Shirley. We also looked at where we might hold a hustings. Box is one of the largest villages in northern Wiltshire, but it's only as big as the second smallest town, which is Wilton. Melksham is very central, has good transport links. That's where we might hold a hustings. And we also looked briefly at the electoral calculus ideas, that if we can gather 3,000 something like-minded people, recruit, then we can potentially swing the parliamentary election in favour of the most climate-friendly candidate. And finally, we started very briefly to consider partner organisations such as the Rail Users or Transport Group. Was it big? I think that's as far as we got, really. Thanks. Those are the main points, 3 or 4 main points. Shirley, did you have a correction for me?
I wasn't sure Box was in. Is Box in Wiltshire?
It's been in North Wiltshire parliamentary constituency, according to Wikipedia. I just checked.
Yeah, but there's other bits that I think that we filched from Baines. That's what I suspect. That was the furthest west bit is Baines. So yeah, but they're too small to bother. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Shall I go? I'm Chippenham. So that was Adam and myself. And I think we felt that actually Adam was himself very keen to perhaps take part in within the next week or so, a sort of core group, just to put together a sort of simple toolkit, but also then start to form a list of organisations we want to contact in the throughout the county, but then also in specific constituencies. Because as I said, we don't want to be getting something organised and find someone else is already doing it. So it's so that needs to happen in parallel. But yeah, I think the feeling was in Chippenham, because Chippenham is Chippenham, Calne, and Wootton Bassett are the main urban centres. And I think Adam was certainly feeling there's a reasonable chance the Lib Dems might prevail. So Obviously, we have very active groups with Chippenham Zero, obviously Adam's Caution group, and we've got the Wootton Bassett have an environment group as well. So I think we've got some potentially some very, already people on the ball who will be, could pick that up and actually be the people on the ground to get something organised.
Okay, shall I do South West Wilts?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just writing a note down there because there was something that's important there. Groups. Okay, we've got two things. One, we think that contacting national groups is a really important thing to do because for what we're saying, it will give us one strength and give us areas or people either go behind if they're in got a bigger group, if you like, in the area that we're trying to work in, i.e. South West Wilts, or we can help build that group with those other groups. But as you were saying just now, Tony, we don't overlap in terms of doing the same things. We want to get hold of them as soon as possible and find out what they're doing and whether they're prepared to join with us or us to join with them or whatever. That conversation really does have to be had with all those big groups. I'll pick up your second point, which we hadn't discussed, which is quite interesting, but picking up our own local groups in South West Wilts. So we should be trying to make sure we're contacting all the local groups we can think of in our local area so that we can then bring them into the party as well. So there's a sort of two-way thing there. So whoever's in the South West Wilts group needs to go and talk to the South West groups. See what I mean? And the third thing was drawing up, and it's part of your toolkit, I think, drawing up a list of key issues that have to be common throughout. So we're not all talking about different things to our potential MPs. And it could also apply if we had a private meeting with MPs as well. But we have a list, not 100 items or 300 items, but a list of what we consider as a WCA are the key 10 issues max, probably 3 or 4 if better, that we really want to hammer home the points when we're talking to the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing is Julie said she'll join the working group.
Sorry,
so you've got to remember Julie will join the working group.
Oh, excellent. I was going to ask whether Julie, yeah. Great.
I'm aside, but I will help where you want, but not as a member of the group. That's
Thanks,
it.
Bill. Okay. Now, how about East? Let's go the other side. East Wiltshire. Was anyone from there? That should be you, Kate, I think. Pusey.
Yeah, that was me and Dean. Yeah. Yes, but I'm afraid we didn't talk about that at all. We just got to know each other for the first time. That we're in the constituency. So I'm afraid we didn't really sort of think about the strategy at all. The only other thing is that, like Melksham and Devizes, East Wiltshire has going to have a primary process as well, based on the work that Compass did and is going on in South Devon. So I am in contact with that group already in terms of organising hustings to choose the best representative to challenge the Tories and to give some people an idea out of the way, out of the prisoner's dilemma as to who do you vote for when you're given a choice of parties and you want to know who will have the best chance of A, representing you, and B, challenging our current incumbent Tory MP, who is not keen on winning power. And yes, enough said.
Oh, sorry, Kate, could you just say something? You said the primary process, is that right?
Yeah, so Compass published a paper about, how do people vote tactically in order to get rid of an incumbent MP, might have been there very, very long time for one particular party. And it's formed into something called the primary process, where organisations have come together in South Devon, East Wilts, Melksham and Devizes, and there's a few more somewhere in Hertfordshire, I think. I can't remember exactly. And they will put up hustings for the candidates who are the progressive parties, so that voters can come along to the hustings and have all those people being asked questions. So A, you can find out who's going to best represent you and your constituency.
Yeah.
But two, to make it much more overt as to who of all those alternative candidates is most likely to challenge and win versus the incumbents. So people who want to vote tactically know who to vote for.
Okay. Well, that sounds like someone we do need to get in touch with then. Very much. So we've got the two constituencies you've mentioned there. So do you have you presumably have a contact for them?
Yeah.
If
I can put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat.
Great, thanks, Kate. Okay.
I think I already have. I think I already did put a contact for the Melksham and Devizes primary at the start. It's certainly an email address I put in actually.
Okay.
At the start of the chat.
Right, I haven't been monitoring that.
Oh, sorry. Well.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's great to know. Okay, we'll pick that up. Let's think. South Cotswolds, probably feeling a bit lonely and a bit disconnected because you're being hung out to dry with Gloucestershire, Cotswolds and Stroud and
so there was me and Martin and Keith in that group. Do you want to talk, Keith, or shall I go through my notes quickly?
Briefly, we did comment on the fact that the bit about adding the bit is that you're right, we seem to have been joined on to Gloucester, so having some knowledge of where the major towns were and the major centres of population in the area that we were joining was interesting. Cirencester is a really big place, so there must be some strong groups there we could link up with. We did have a bit of discussion about the Lib Dems' new candidate standing. But what's also unusual is that Julian Gray, the incumbent for the area we're in now, is now going to be standing for the whole new area. So he's got to convince a load of people who haven't previously had him as MP to become their MP. So it feels to me like so much change going on in the area, the massive opportunity to influence people, because there'll be a lot of confused voters not quite sure what they're supposed to do. That was my main comment. Keen to join the organising group myself, keen to go and meet with those candidates, keen to meet with major towns and all areas in the area where there's groups we can link up with. That was my main take from it. Julian, what other stuff have we got?
Yeah, no, I think that's the main thing. I mean, we talked about both individual meeting and hostings, and Keith has got good contacts with the candidate, so that'll be a gateway to discussing what would be useful, and working out what other groups we can collaborate within Gloucestershire to try and organise, get our hostings going there. Probably it would need someone to take a lead, so I'll have to work out who that might be.
Well, I think Adam and I, having been both subject to James Gray, we could perhaps give a little bit of intel on that side. I also know Ross Savage, the Lib Dem candidate for that area. So, I think we can.
That's good. So we got Chaz.
Well, this is a bit of a separate issue, really. But Tamara Ray, who is no longer with us, did she say anything on when she left, or no? We don't know.
Did anyone else?
Right. So the other one we haven't done is Salisbury.
Yeah.
Yep. Shall I say something about Salisbury? It was just me and Peggy,
please.
in fact.
No, that's my mum,
sorry,
remember?
Sorry, Claire. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it?
We discovered Margaret knew my mum, so that's why she's called me Peggy.
Yeah, that was it. Apologies. Me and Claire, I should have said. We hadn't actually met before, so that, although I know her mother, knew her mother. In Salisbury, there's generally a hustings being organised by Churches Together or equivalent organisation, and I think we would be thinking to make contact with them at an early stage to ascertain whether they were going to do the same again. It's a fairly major event in Salisbury, and I mean, they need to hire a large hall. They've done it in school halls and large church halls before now. And I think we felt that to get some questions into a general hustings like that would be the best approach. Would be very interested, as Bill mentioned, if you're going to get some general issues together that we might want to raise, that would be really useful to have something like that as a start point for questions that we might want to think about raising. So other than that, keeping tabs on what other organisations are doing. We also noted that we haven't as yet got a full slate of candidates in Salisbury, so we need to try and figure out who's going to get selected. I think obviously John Glenn is going to be back as the Conservative. He's currently member of the cabinet, and his constituency has changed quite a lot. He's currently focusing quite a lot on areas to the west of Salisbury and new parts of his constituency. But unfortunately, the people, Maggie Paul, for instance, from Tisbury, were no longer in the meeting, so we couldn't discuss what we're going to do about that. So I think that's about the size of it, really. Anything else, Claire, that you can think of? And apologies about the name again.
so funny. No, just that it's a good opportunity now to make contact with all those other groups who are really active, bearing in mind that whatever the shape of the constituency, even now, we have one big place, and then generally there are smaller hustings. So there might be one out in the Coombe-Bissett in the Chalk Valley or something that historically, so there's already probably villages that historically have always had hustings, because that's the way it's always been. So I think it's to latch on and find out what the plans are for the hustings, and sort of try and make contact with people I know to find out what's going on. Yeah, that's great. I think that goes for everyone in every area. But I think the thing we'd need to probably work out quite quickly is, you know, a hustings great, but it might be, if it's with another organisation, they may want, you know, be asking questions that are not so much pertinent to our interests. So it's been quite clear what we want to ask, and then find who is the best partner for that. Otherwise, as I said, we could end up with one or two questions and not really get to the meat of it. So I think we have to be quite clear what we're trying to get out of this too.
I was going to make the same point, and also it could well be worth trying to organise an individual meeting with the key candidate key other candidate in that constituency, just in case they get in, and it's a good, it's great to establish a relationship with them before they're an MP, if that might happen.
Can I just ask, of the Salisbury crew, is anybody going to join the organising group? Go on.
Well, I've got other skin in the game in the family, so that wouldn't work for me at all. No, not at all. But I think the interests of the people who organise the hustings are probably quite well aligned anyway. So that's what I wanted to find out about. Yeah.
I think we're okay in terms of number of people in the core group. The key thing is, what we really want is a contact in each of the constituencies that we can interface with. So if maybe Claire and Margaret are willing to do that.
Oh yes, yeah,
very happy to do that.
Very happy. I mean, I do know what's going on in the constituency politically very, very well. I think you do, Margaret, too, don't you? So
reasonably,
yeah.
So just to kind of really pin this down a bit, then, as I say, we got the core group, as Adam said. That's great. But so in terms of Melksham and Devizes, who is prepared to be, who are we going to have as the contact person who can be a conduit for the local area? And that's not necessarily they have to organise much, but also just to be in listening mode. Working out finding out who's the local organisations and giving contacts that perhaps, if they're not able to, they can then pass on to the group to follow up. So do we have
we have to decide where we're going to do hustings, and it makes sense to have somebody who's involved in setting up hustings to be key to that constituency, I would have thought. However, I'm quite happy to put my name in the hat because it says devices on the tin, and I'm in the tin, so. But it also.
Are you a candidate, Margaret? Or
no, I'm not. No.
Oh, okay.
No, that was a couple of elections ago.
Oh, okay.
and my party decided that it would be a good idea to agree with another party that we would stand some people down. So we stood down quite a lot of people, and they didn't stand down anybody worth speaking of. So we won't play that game anymore.
Yeah.
But no, it's Catherine for devices.
Okay. So are we saying Margaret at this
But
stage
I'd like to be involved with trying to make sure that our concerns are carried forward by whoever ends up being the next MP.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. And Chippenham area, that's Adam, you and I. So I think we covered that way. Southwest, who's going to be the sort of
Julie was going to be the point there. She's joining you.
right. Oh, okay. So you're going to do that as well. Great, thank you. I wasn't sure where you lived.
Sorry, I might be able to find some more people to help through Leaf, through the group that I help as well. So I'm having our AGM on Saturday, so I'll mention this to them. And there are a few people in that group that are quite interested in the political landscape. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's elements of the agricultural sector might be. Have a, you know, we maybe balk at the NFU. I don't know, but.
No, we've got a really good connection now with all the farmers in the area through the Wiley Valley Farmers Group and others. So yeah.
And plus, what we really need is a group in the area to take a lead, as opposed to an individual, really. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah, great. Okay, and East Wilts.
It's me and Dean here tonight. I've put the East Wiltshire Primary Organisation link into the chat.
Thank you.
So you can get in touch with them directly. Like it'd be a bit difficult for me to organise all the primaries and things, but I can certainly think of some of the organisations. So Bean's already suggested the Marlborough Quakers run the Marlborough hustings and have been very active in organising the climate debate with Danny Kruger last time, when apparently the Conservatives' emails are just sacks got overloaded when they put out those contracts for the oil thing in the North Sea, and that utter betrayal brought the whole of Marlborough out. It was very well attended, very angry meeting.
Yeah. Okay, but
Quakers
Kate,
did a good
would
job.
you be happy to just be as a conduit for the moment, just for names that come forward? I mean, not organising so much, but just.
No, I can't organise, but I can certainly be a conduit for names until somebody else.
Great. I think that's what we're looking at the moment, is just information gathering, which the central group can then deal with, and then we can firm things up. Yeah.
But certainly get in touch with the East Wiltshire Primary Group. I've given you the link.
Yeah.
I can't give people's private emails, I'm afraid, because that's against the GDPR, but that you can get to them very quickly. And I'm sure they would love to hear from the Wiltshire Climate Alliance, knowing the individuals involved.
Thank you. And Keith, I guess you're a man in South Cots. Good stuff.
I definitely am. I'm quite reared up and excited about this. Something new happening in the area. My mate, I've got so many letters from my MP, and he actually once replied to an email and said he was really interested in some of the stuff I told him about tipping points. So that does reveal that actually there are some huge gaps in the knowledge base of MPs. Whether he's at a tipping point or not yet, we shall find out.
I couldn't agree more, Keith. There's a massive education issue here, and we've been writing recently to John Glenn about the ridiculous, you know, we're in a position in Wiltshire, aren't we? And this isn't like every county, where we just can't actually execute half of the recommendations anyway, because we don't have infrastructure, etc., etc. So yeah, it's really time to you know, stop them spouting rubbish. At least if we're going to be stuck with the same people, then hopefully we
So
can stop them saying the wrong things.
Yeah, that's why those individual meetings with an IPCC presentation are so important, and they are very effective at that. Yeah, really good point.
Right. Thank you.
Why don't we use the CCC as information? That's closer to home.
Yeah, I think that's a really good source, and the 6 carbon budget, because it's
Yeah.
very telling specifically.
That's what our people in our country are telling us we've got to do, and you're not bloody not listening.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
It's a very good point. I mean, has anyone got any sort of presentation or anything to start from the CCC?
There's loads of stuff on their website. It's very easy to and very accessible to get.
Good.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something as steering group can
well, I wouldn't mind having a go at that myself, but because I can do that offline.
Okay. And just Salisbury, who would be able to be the sort of conduit for names and suggestions we can follow up on?
I'm happy. Yes, you can.
Claire, thank you.
You can. Yes, you just email me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do a mail. Once we've got some things together, we'll have a mail out to you, and then we'll see what you've found or what you've heard of in your area, and we'll work from there. Just getting conscious of time, but Andrew, you've got a hand up.
Yes, I just very briefly wanted to second what Julie said, and also Keith, about educating these MPs and candidates, especially if they are Daily Telegraph readers. They might have a very different take on the realities than what we have at the moment. Thanks.
We need to know that, though, Andrew. Yeah, my points would just, I'll stop. One, we've got to think of past influencing candidates into their position, and how at some point, as we did when we were doing the local elections last time, work out how we're going to influence people to vote for the particular candidates who seem to be strong on climate. So I don't know, that's not for now, but certainly something we need to do. And the second thing was, can I suggest a more positive reaction from the people who are on the sideline to say, I will send to the steering group, the working group, any contact groups we think we've got within local areas that we're in, so that you start getting a list of other groups that we may locally be able to contact, just sent in, so that you know there's more of them than just one. I've got one already, it's Leaf. We'll find some others though. And,
yeah, thanks for that.
I think we'll...
Yeah, thanks for that, Bill. Yes, I think everyone really just chip in. So what would be the best way for people to let us know? What is just the general email?
The time being, that's the best one yet to use.
Yeah.
Or is it better on WhatsApp?
That's a good idea. Let's create a WhatsApp group, shall we?
Okay.
We might want to create an email group as well, actually.
Yeah.
It's too late to think about these details, I think, isn't it? I need to dash in a moment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's really good, and I think there's, I mean, this is a real thing to focus on. So it's great. I mean, I can't even bear to think about, Bill, you mentioned about the local elections, but
that's next year. That's next year.
Yeah, but that's May. We know when that will be. Yeah. Okay.
For us, Wiltshire's next year, 25.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. All right. Phew. Thank God for that. Okay.
I think that about it. Next meeting in February. I think this has been very useful and constructive, this action around hustings and individual meetings, and also the green open homes. and the whatever it was in between. So 7th of February meeting will be before our 20th of February representation or presence at Wiltshire Council's annual February meeting, the 5th anniversary. I'd be very keen on an item being to do with engaging with individual councillors, as we're proposing to do with parliamentary candidates, either individually or through area boards. Bradford's been invited to give a presentation to Climate Friendly Bradford has been invited to present to its area board, and I'd like to see if we can take this sort of thing forward, because that same exact education point, thank you Julie, is very true of Wiltshire councillors. I feel that there's so little that they're aware of, and the climate emergency has been changing over the last 2-3 years since COP26. Thanks. Margaret, did you want to add?
Just a very quick one. Oops, something's come up. Oh, I waggled the mouse and did something horrible. Yes, the retrofit fits very, very, very tightly in with climate, and it also is a big economic driver. So it doesn't matter where you come, which part of the universe you come from. If you're not putting retrofit first, we've missed, well, that and change of diet. Those are the two big things that we should be telling people will benefit their kids, because we're doing this for the kids. It's not us that's going to be hang out to dry.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Julie, were you wanting
to? Just a quick point on that. I completely agree, Margaret. And with regard to what we're doing in WCA, we should make the most of the Green Homes event, as part of this interest around the next election as well. We try and bring them together to actually integrate what we're doing, so that we get a lot more interest and momentum building, rather than running them as separate projects. So I think it would be good to have, regular updates with the other teams involved in other projects, including the Elms project as well, actually. Just, because that information can all be drip feeding down out into the communities as we're building interest for the hustings.
Okay. Very good idea, Julie.
Well, let's not all operate as islands, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey.
Have we done, or did Bill? Did you still have that item? Didn't you? You wanted to, or
no? I was just raising the 20th, but I think I'll put something out in the mail and make sure that we're starting to gather people together, because I think it is important. It is 5 years, and we really do want to get some people out there on the lawn in front of County Hall and in County Hall asking questions, because we just need to remind them we're still here. Okay,
Great.
that's all for tonight. I mean, I'm happy with what we got. Good meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
We off?
I think
good
so.
To see
Thanks,
everyone. Happy New
Thank
Year.
you. Yeah, good to see you all.
Bye there.
Take care.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for an exciting meeting. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I know.